We have Vera Stone in our company, a talented lady who has entertained many people over the years, and today shares with us some of her favourite verses.
Before I relate one of my favourite poems, The Four Farrellys by Percy French, I'll just tell you a little about him. Percy French was born in Clooney Quinn, County Roscommon in 1884. He attended Foyle College in Derry before graduating from Trinity College as a civil engineer in 1881. He gained a post with the Board of Works locating to Cavan, where he gave himself the impressive title Inspector of Drains. He wrote one of his most famous songs, Come Back Paddy Riley to Ballyjames Duff, now almost an anthem in the area. A bronze sculpture of him sitting on a bench is to be seen in the square in that town. He married Ethel Armitage Moore when she was only 19, but sadly she died the following year along with her baby girl. Heartbroken by their loss, he wrote the poignant poem Gortna Mona at that time. A talented landscape artist, his watercolours are much sought after. He composed many poems, plays and humorous songs. One firm favourite, The Mountains of Mourne, was reputedly inspired during a holiday in Skerries while sitting on the seashore looking towards the Cooley and Mourne Mountains. A seat bearing a plaque dedicated to him is erected there together with the words of the song. Ridiculing the narrow gauge railway system in County Clare led to a court case which he defended and won admirably. He entertained extensively in his latter years, travelling all over Ireland, England and Scotland with his extensive repertoire. His many works are still enjoyed by so many people after 100 years after his death. In a small hotel in London, I was sitting down to dine when the waiter brought the register and asked me if I'd sign. And as I signed, I saw a name that set me heart to stir. A certain Francis Farrelly had signed the register. Now, I knew lots of Farrellys, and out of all the crew, I started sort of wondering which Farrelly were you. And after having dinner, I sat back in my chair and roamed the 4 provinces of my native land to find which Farrelly you were. Were you the keen-eyed Kerry man I met below Kenmare that told me that when Ireland fought, the odds were never fair? If Cromwell had met Sarsfield or Owen Roe O'Neill, 'tis not to miss the Gladstone we'd be looking for repeal. We'd have Ireland for the Irish, not a Saxon to be seen, and only Gaelic spoken in that house in College Green. Told me landlords were the devil, and their agents even worse, and every sort of government for Ireland was a curse. Now, if you're that Francis Farrelly, your dreams have not come true. Still, sláinte, Francine, for I like a man like you. Or were you the Francis Farrelly that often used to say he'd like to knock them papists from Derry's walls away? The lad who used to bother me the Orange Lodge to join and thought that history started with the Battle of the Boyne. Now, I'm not there with you, Francis, and the Pope is not me friend, but still, I hope, poor man, he doesn't meet a bitter end. And so when you've done for care yourself and get to kingdom come, 'tis no use teaching you the harp, you'll play the orange drum. Oh, but man, you were a fighter. Now, of that I have no doubt. For I saw ye in Belfast one night when the Antrim Road was out. And sure many a time that evening I thought that you were dead. The way them papist paving stones were hopping off your head. Now, if you're that Francis Farrelly that came from North Tyrone, here's looking to you, Francis, but leave the Pope alone. Or were you the Francis Farrelly that in me college days for roaming on the Kingstown Pier was such a glorious craze? Do you remember them two lovely sisters, the blonde and the brunette? Ah, well, I know I've not forgotten, and I don't think you forget. The picnics at the Dargle and the others at the Scalp. My heart was palpitating, hers wasn't, not a palp. Now, they said you married money, and sure maybe you were wise, but the gold you loved was in her hair and the diamonds in her eyes. So I like to think you married her and that you're with her yet. It was some militia officer that married the brunette, but the blonde one always loved you, and I know you loved her too. So me blessings on you, Francis, and blue skies over you. Or were you the Francis Farrelly I met so long ago in the bog below Belmullet in the county of Mayo? That long-legged, freckled Francis with the deep-set, wistful eyes that seemed to take their colour from the ever-changing skies, that put his flute together as I sketched a distant scene and played me Planxty Kelly and the Wakes of Inniskeen, that told me in the autumn he'd be bailing to the west to try and make his fortune and send money to the rest. And would I draw a picture of the place where he was born, and he'd hang it up and look at it and not feel so forlorn. Now, if you're that Francis Farrelly, your fortune may be small, but I'm thinking, Francis, that I loved you best of all, and I never will forget you, though it's years and years ago, in the bog below Belmullet, in the county of Mayo. He's gone to school, wee Hughie, and him only 4. I saw the fright was on him and he walking out the door, but he took a hand of Jimmy and he took a hand of Dan, and with old Joe's coat upon him, oh, the poor wee man. He cut the queerest figure, neither stout nor thin, and trotting right and steady with his toes turned in. I watched him to the corner by the big turf stack, and the more his feet went forward, sure his head kept turning back. He was looking, what I call him. Och, me heart was full of woe. Sure it's lost I'll be without him, but it's better that he go. I followed to the corner, and as they passed it by, God help him, he was crying, and sure maybe so was I. I was born and reared on Sandy Row, a loyal Ulster prod. I stood for good King William, that noble man of God. Me motto, no surrender. Me flag, the Union Jack. And every 12th, I'd proudly march to Finnehy and back. A loyal son of Ulster, a true blue, that was me, prepared to fight prepared to die for faith and liberty. As well as that, a Linfield man. And ever, do you mind, I had no time for Catholics or any of that kind. And then one night in Bangor, I met wee Rosie Green. The minute I set eyes on her, I knew she was me queen. And when I saw she fancied me, sure me heart was all abuzz. And I clean forgot to ask her what her religion was. Next time we met, I told her, I'm a proddy, staunch and true. And she says, oh, well, I'm a Catholic and just as staunch as you. The words were harsh and bitter, but suddenly like this, years of heartache and conflict were forgotten with a kiss. Now, I knew our love would bring us only trouble and distress, but nothing in this world would make me love wee Rosie less. I saved a bit of money, and as quickly as I could, I asked her if she'd marry me. And because she said she would. Well, then the trouble started. Her folks went raving mad. And sure, when mine heard the news, sure, they were twice as bad. Me father said from that day on, he'd hang his head in shame. And by a strange coincidence, her father said the same. Me mother cried her eyes out and said I'd rued the day I'd let a papish hussy steal me loyal heart away. And when Rosie's mother had recovered from the blow, well, she said she'd rather have the divil than a man from Sandy Row. Well, we were married in the Papist church the other side of town. That's how Rosie wanted it, and I couldn't let her down. The priest was very nice to us and made me feel at home. I think he felt sorry for us, for our families didn't come. The rooms we went to live in had nothing but the walls. It was far away from Sandy Row and further from the falls. But that's the way we wanted it, for both of us knew well that to live among the folks we knew, our lives would be living hell. But life out there for Rosie was lonely, and this I so well knew. And of course we did have our religious differences too. At dinner time on Friday, when Rosie gave me fish, well, I looked at it and then at her and said, that's not my dish. I remember well the words she spoke. You've got to pay some price. And to eat no meat on Friday is a small wee sacrifice to make for one who died for us one Friday long ago. Well, anyway, I ate the fish and it wasn't bad, you know. Then Sunday came and I lay on when she got up at 8. But Rosie turned to me and says, get up or you'll be late. You've got a church to go to, and that's where you should be. So up you get this minute, you'll be part of the road with me. Well, we left the house together and we parted down the line, and she went off to her church and I went off to mine. But all throughout the service, although we were apart, I felt we prayed together, united heart to heart. Well, the weeks and months went quickly by, and then there came the day that Rosie up and tells me that a child is on the way. We both got down on our knees that day and asked the Lord above to give our child 2 special gifts, tolerance and love. We wrote and told our parents. They never used to call. We thought that it might soften them, and so it did and all. Me mother and then Rosie's said they'd visit us in turn, and we marvelled at the power of a wee child not yet born. But we were disillusioned when we found out why they'd come. It wasn't to be friendly or make up with us again. Rosie's mother said the child would have to be RC, and Charmaine said it would have to be a Protestant like me. Well, the rows before the wedding were surely meek and mild, compared with all the rumpus that was raised about the child. From both sides of the family, insults and threats were thrown. Oh, what a way to welcome a wee angel to the world. The child must be a Catholic. The child must be a prod. But the loudest voice I heard was the voice of Almighty God. And to his awful wisdom, I had to bow my head. For 1 hour after he was born, our poor wee child was dead. That night, I sat by Rosie's side, and just before the dawn, I kissed her as she left me to join our angel son. And me loyal heart was broken within them lonely walls. Where the hell's the Shankill, and where the hell's the Falls? But that was many years ago, long years of grief and pain, when I'd have given all I had to see Rosie's face again. But the loneliness is waning now. I'll see her soon, I know, for the doctor told me yesterday I haven't long to go. And when I go up yonder, they let me in, I hope. And when they ask me who I'm for, King Billy or the Pope, I'm going to take no chances. I'll tell them straight and fair. I'm a loyal Ulster Protestant who loved a papisher. And one way or another, I know they let me through. And Rosie will be waiting, and our little angel too. And then the child will lead the two of us, the papisher and the prod, up the steps together to the arms of Almighty God. Now, you all know the story of poor old Cinderella, but this is about a Dublin Cinderella. It's all about a mot who had to stay home because she couldn't get a fella. She had to do the housework for an ugly pair of sisters, and they never even stamped her cards, the dirty pair of twisters. She had no nylon stockings nor powder for her nose, and the only bit of glamour was the sisters' cast-off clothes. Till one night, when the ugly sisters had gone off to a ball, the queen of all the fairies came through the kitchen wall. Well, the queen, she waved her magic wand over little Cinders, and like a flash, she's in a slinky dress from Roach's doors and sexy black suspenders. Well, the queen, she waved her wand again before she did disperse, and a coach all made of glass appeared, now just like an undertaker's hearse. Into the coach stepped Cinders, and she drove off to the ball. She caused a great sensation as she walked through the hall. Centre of attraction, she was the perfect toff. Well, the fellas, they were all Delilah. And the moths, well, they were all browned off. And as she walked down through them all, sure, she broke near every heart. And the prince, well, he nudged his bodyguard and says, "There goes a smashing looking tart." He asked her up for every dance, but she only gave him 5. The waltz, the foxtrot, the tango, the jitterbug and the jive. Then he asked her to the garden, now just to listen to the band. And the dirty-looking idiot, he never even held her hand. But then he plucked up courage and he was doing well, till the bleeding clock struck 12 o'clock and she had to run like hell. Didn't she drop her little slipper as she running from the room? Well, she ran all the way down Clanbrassil Street. That's a shortcut to the Coombe. Well, the prince, he picked the slipper up, and to his bodyguard he says, the moth that fits this slipper is the only one I'll wed. Go out and search and find her, the wearer of this slipper, and bring her back to Marlborough Street. Sure, I'll be waiting in the chipper. Well, the guards went out and they tried the shoe on every foot in town. Oh, 'twas a terrible smelly job. Now, and it nearly got them down. But Cinderella, she was the only one successful to the test. And the prince, he married Cinders, and yous all know the rest.